Portsmouth, Ohio sits on the banks of the Ohio River, a small city that has seen better days. The factories that once employed half the town closed one by one, leaving behind empty buildings and broken dreams. But one company survived. Harris Manufacturing stands on the north side of town, a sprawling complex of metal buildings that produces industrial components for the automotive industry. It is the largest employer in Portsmouth, and it is owned by my family. Or rather, it was. My name is Roberta Harris, and this is my story. My father, Robert Harris, inherited the company from his grandfather, who built it from nothing in the 1960s. He ran it with an iron fist and a conservative mindset, refusing to modernize or expand. My mother, Margaret Harris, managed the company's finances and the family's social calendar. They were the closest thing Portsmouth had to royalty, and they knew it. They had 2 children. The first was my brother Christopher, born 2 years before me, a boy who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Christopher was athletic, charming, and utterly mediocre at everything that required actual effort. But he was the son, the heir apparent to Harris Manufacturing, and my parents treated him as such. I was the second child. I was born on a cold February morning, and from the very beginning, I was an afterthought. My parents had wanted another son. They got a daughter instead. They never said it out loud, but I felt it in every interaction, every birthday, every family dinner where the conversation revolved entirely around Christopher. I grew up in a large house on the hill overlooking Portsmouth, a Victorian mansion that had been in the Harris family for 3 generations. I had my own room, my own clothes, my own everything. Materially, I wanted for nothing. But emotionally, I was starved. My parents were not cruel in the traditional sense. They did not hit me or lock me in closets. They simply did not see me. I was furniture in their home, a background character in the story of their lives. They attended Christopher's football games but never my violin recitals. They celebrated Christopher's C grades as if they were A's but dismissed my straight A's as expected. They asked Christopher about his day, his friends, his dreams. They asked me if I had done my homework. The message was clear. Christopher mattered. I did not. I learned to be independent early. By the time I was 10, I was making my own breakfast, packing my own lunch, and doing my own laundry. My mother was too busy managing the company's social calendar to bother with such mundane tasks. I did not complain. I had learned that complaining only led to disappointment. In school, I excelled. I was naturally gifted at mathematics and business, subjects that came to me as easily as breathing. I read every book I could find about finance, economics, and entrepreneurship. By the time I was 14, I had started a small business tutoring other students in math, charging $20 an hour. I saved every penny. My father noticed my business acumen exactly once. I presented him with a detailed analysis of Harris Manufacturing's supply chain inefficiencies, complete with a proposal for how to save the company at least $200,000 a year. I had spent 3 months working on it, researching every aspect of the company's operations. I was 15 years old. He glanced at the document, laughed, and tossed it in the trash. "Stick to your schoolwork, Roberta," he said. "Leave the business to the adults." I did not try again. Christopher, meanwhile, was a disaster. He coasted through high school on his charm and my parents' influence. He failed classes but was passed anyway. He got into trouble with the law but was bailed out. He crashed 2 cars before he turned 18, and my parents bought him a third. He was their golden child, and they protected him from every consequence of his actions. When it came time for college, Christopher announced that he wanted to go to Ohio State University. He had been accepted, barely, thanks to my parents' donations and connections. The cost of tuition, room, and board was $50,000 a year. I had also been accepted to Ohio State. I had applied early decision and had been admitted with a partial academic scholarship. My grades and test scores were in the top 1% of my class. I had also, over the past 4 years, saved $8,000 from my tutoring business. I planned to use that money, combined with the college fund my grandmother had set up for me, to pay for my education. The college fund had been established by my maternal grandmother, who passed away when I was 12. It contained $70,000, intended specifically for my education. My grandmother had made sure to specify this in her will, knowing that the Harris family had a tendency to prioritize Christopher over everything else. On a warm June evening, 2 weeks after graduation, my parents called me into the study. I walked in to find them sitting behind the large oak desk, their faces serious. Christopher was not there, which should have been my first warning. "Sit down, Roberta," my father said. I sat. "We need to talk about college," my mother said. "There has been a change of plans." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What kind of change?" My father leaned forward. "Christopher's tuition is more than we anticipated. $50,000 a year is a lot of money. And there are other expenses. His housing, his car, his living expenses. We have decided to use your grandmother's fund to cover the difference." I blinked. "What?" "Your grandmother's college fund," my father repeated, as if I had not heard him. "We are redirecting it to Christopher. He needs it more than you do." "But Grandma left that money for me," I said. "She specifically said it was for my education." "I have the letter. I have the will. We are your parents," my mother said coldly. "We control the finances until you are 18. And we have decided that this is the best use of the money. You have a scholarship. You can work. Christopher needs the help more." "He needs it more?" My voice rose. "He has a 2.5 grade point average. He got into Ohio State because you donated money. I have a 4.0. I have a scholarship. I have been saving my own money for 4 years. And you are taking my grandmother's inheritance and giving it to him?" "Watch your tone," my father said. "And what about the $8,000 I saved? Is that going to him too?" My parents exchanged a glance. My mother opened a drawer and pulled out a bank statement. "We had to access your savings account to cover some expenses," my mother said. "The company had a rough quarter. We needed the liquidity. We will pay you back when we can." I stared at the statement. My account balance was zero. The $8,000 I had worked for, saved, sacrificed for, was gone. "You stole from me," I said. The words came out flat, emotionless. I was beyond anger. "We did not steal," my father said. "We are your parents. Everything you have is ours until you are an adult. And we needed the money." "For Christopher," I said. "For the family," my mother corrected. I stood up. I looked at my parents, sitting behind their desk in their big house on the hill, and felt something inside me break. But it did not shatter into sadness. It shattered into clarity. "I am leaving," I said. "Leaving where?" my mother asked. "I am leaving this house. I am leaving this town. I am leaving you." My father laughed. "And do what?" "You have no money. You have no car. You have no job. Where are you going to go?" I walked out of the study without answering. I went upstairs to my room and packed a single duffel bag. Clothes. My laptop. My phone. A folder of important documents I had been keeping since I was 15, including the letter from my grandmother's will. I walked downstairs and found my parents still in the study, talking in low voices. They looked up when I appeared. "I am going," I said. "Do not try to stop me. Do not call me. Do not look for me. As far as I am concerned, I do not have parents anymore." "Roberta, do not be dramatic," my mother said. "You are being ridiculous. Come back tomorrow and we can talk about this rationally." "There is nothing to talk about," I said. You made your choice. You chose Christopher. You always have. And I am done being the one who gets nothing. I walked out the front door of the Harris mansion and did not look back. It was 10 o'clock at night. I had no car, no money, and no plan. I walked to the Greyhound station on the south side of town and used my last $30 to buy a ticket to the farthest place I could afford. New York City. The bus ride took 12 hours. I sat in the back, my duffel bag clutched to my chest, watching the lights of small towns pass by in the darkness. I did not sleep. I could not sleep. My mind was racing with fear and anger and a desperate, stubborn hope that I refused to acknowledge. I arrived at the Port Authority bus terminal at 10 in the morning. The city hit me like a wave, the noise, the crowds, the smell of exhaust and street food, and a million lives being lived in close proximity. I had never been to New York before. I had never been anywhere before. I had exactly $12 in my pocket. The first week was brutal. I found a hostel in Hell's Kitchen that charged $20 a night. I paid for 3 nights and spent the 4th night sleeping in a McDonald's, nursing a single cup of coffee for 6 hours while I used their Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. I applied to everything. Restaurants, retail stores, offices, cleaning services. I walked into buildings and asked if they were hiring. I called numbers from classified ads. I did not stop moving for a single moment, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant confronting the reality of what I had done. On the 5th day, I got a job as a waitress at a diner in Midtown. The pay was minimum wage plus tips. The hours were long and the customers were often rude. But it was a start. I found a room to rent in a shared apartment in Queens, a cramped space barely large enough for a bed and a desk, for $400 a month. It was in a neighborhood where the police sirens were constant and the walls were thin enough to hear my neighbors arguing. But it had a door that locked, and it was mine. I worked the diner job during the day and picked up a second job at night, cleaning offices in a commercial building. I slept 4 hours a night, sometimes 5. I ate ramen and rice and whatever was cheapest at the bodega. I saved every penny I could. But I did not stop there. I enrolled in online courses in finance and business management, studying during my breaks at the diner and late at night after my cleaning shift ended. I was determined to learn everything I could about the world of money and commerce. I was going to understand the system that had failed me, and I was going to master it. After a year in New York, I had saved $12,000. I quit both jobs and enrolled full-time at a community college in Manhattan, pursuing a degree in business administration. I took out student loans to cover tuition and lived on my savings. I graduated in 2 years with an associate degree and a perfect grade point average. I transferred to a 4-year program at Baruch College, one of the top business schools in the city. I majored in finance and minored in computer science, sensing that the future of money was going to be digital. I graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree in finance. But I was not done. I applied to Columbia Business School and was accepted. The tuition was staggering, over $70,000 a year. I took out more loans. I worked as a research assistant for a professor who specialized in financial technology. I wrote papers on blockchain applications in banking. I graduated with a Master of Business Administration and a specialization in fintech. I was 26 years old. I had a mountain of student debt. I had no family, no safety net, no one to call if I failed. But I had knowledge. I had experience. And I had a vision. After graduating, I took a job at a major investment bank in Manhattan. The pay was good, over $150,000 a year, plus bonuses. I worked 80-hour weeks, learning the inner workings of high finance. I studied how money moved through the global economy, how companies were valued, how acquisitions were structured. I absorbed everything like a sponge. I stayed at the bank for 3 years. I paid off my student loans. I saved $200,000. And I watched. I watched how the traditional banking system was slow, inefficient, and resistant to change. I watched how small businesses struggled to access capital. I watched how technology was transforming every industry except finance, which clung to its outdated systems like a security blanket. I saw an opportunity. In my 29th year, I quit my job. I used my savings to rent a small office in a co-working space in Brooklyn. I bought a used laptop and a second monitor. I started coding. The idea was simple. A platform that used artificial intelligence to provide real-time financial analysis and lending decisions for small and medium-sized businesses. Instead of waiting weeks for a bank to approve a loan, businesses could get a decision in minutes. Instead of paying exorbitant fees for financial consulting, they could access sophisticated analytics for a fraction of the cost. I called it NovaFin. The first year was a grind. I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. I coded the platform myself, taught myself machine learning algorithms, built the back-end infrastructure. I ate at my desk and slept on a cot in the corner of my office. I went weeks without seeing anyone outside of my co-working space. I ran out of money 6 months in. I took on freelance consulting work to pay the bills, using my finance expertise to help small businesses with their financial planning. The consulting work paid for my rent and my ramen, and every spare dollar went back into NovaFin. At the end of the first year, I had a working prototype. I showed it to a former colleague from the investment bank, who was now a partner at a venture capital firm. He was impressed enough to introduce me to his partners. The pitch meeting was in a conference room overlooking Central Park. I stood in front of 5 venture capitalists and presented my vision. I walked them through the technology, the market opportunity, the revenue model. I answered every question with precision and confidence. They offered me $2 million in seed funding. I took it. The next 3 years were a blur of growth. I hired a team. I built out the platform. I acquired my first customers, then my 10th, then my 100th. I raised more funding, a Series A of $15 million, a Series B of $50 million. I moved into proper offices in Manhattan. I appeared on the covers of business magazines. NovaFin was disrupting the financial industry. The platform was processing billions of dollars in transactions. Major companies were integrating it into their operations. The valuation climbed, 100 million, 500 million, 1 billion. By the time I was 34, NovaFin was valued at $1.6 billion. I was the sole founder and majority shareholder. I had 1,700 employees. I had offices in New York, London, and Singapore. I was also completely estranged from my family. I had not spoken to my parents since the night I walked out of their house. I had not spoken to Christopher in even longer. I had blocked their numbers, their emails, their social media accounts. As far as I was concerned, the Harris family of Portsmouth, Ohio no longer existed. But I never stopped watching them. 3 years into building NovaFin, I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on Harris Manufacturing. It was not sentiment. It was strategy. I wanted to know everything about the company that my father had chosen over me. I read the reports every quarter, tracking the company's declining revenues, its aging infrastructure, its mounting debt. My father had run the company into the ground. He had refused to modernize. He had refused to diversify. He had refused to listen to anyone who suggested change. The company that had once been the largest employer in Portsmouth was now barely staying afloat. And Christopher was involved. My brother had been given a senior position at Harris Manufacturing, despite having no qualifications beyond his last name. He was paid a lavish salary while the company bled money. He made decisions based on ego rather than strategy. He was a disaster in every sense of the word. I read the reports and felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not pity. Just a cold, analytical assessment of a failing business. I filed the information away and continued building my empire. Then, in my 10th year of estrangement, I saw an opportunity. Harris Manufacturing was publicly traded, though my family still held a controlling stake. The stock had been declining for years. The company was heavily leveraged, carrying tens of millions of dollars in debt. Its credit rating was hovering just above junk status. I started buying. I used shell companies to acquire shares, hiding my involvement. I bought in small batches to avoid triggering disclosure requirements. I accumulated a 5% stake, then 10, then 15. Each purchase was a small piece of the company that had dismissed me, that had stolen from me, that had chosen my brother over me. At the same time, I began acquiring the company's debt. I contacted the banks that held Harris Manufacturing's loans and offered to buy them at a discount. The banks were happy to offload the risky debt. Within 18 months, I controlled a significant portion of the company's outstanding debt obligations. I was patient. I had learned patience in the years of struggle, in the long nights of coding and studying and building. I could wait. The company was bleeding money. My father was desperate. The clock was ticking. The first sign of trouble came when the banks called in their loans. I, now the holder of the debt, demanded immediate repayment. Harris Manufacturing did not have the cash. The company was on the verge of default. My father tried to secure new financing. Every bank turned him down. He tried to find a buyer for the company. No one was interested. Then the anonymous shareholder started making demands. The holder of 15% of the company's stock demanded a seat on the board. Demanded access to financial records. Demanded an audit. My father fought the demands in court and lost. My legal team was better than his. The anonymous shareholder was granted full access to the company's books. That was when the embezzlement was uncovered. I learned about it from my investigator's report. Christopher had been stealing from the company for years. He had set up fake vendors, submitted fraudulent invoices, and funneled millions of dollars into shell accounts he controlled. The total was just over $4 million, spread across 5 years. The audit uncovered everything. My father was faced with an impossible choice. He could report the embezzlement and watch his son go to prison. Or he could cover it up. He chose to cover it up. It was a catastrophic mistake. The cover-up was clumsy and transparent. The auditors noticed. The board noticed. And I had all the evidence I needed. I sent it to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI raided Harris Manufacturing on a Tuesday morning. I read about it in the news before my investigator even sent his report. Agents and windbreakers swarmed the building, seizing computers and documents and servers. My father was led out of his office in handcuffs, though he was released after questioning. Christopher was not so lucky. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The federal charges were announced at a press conference. Christopher Harris was charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. He faced up to 30 years in prison. My grandmother called me that evening. She was the only one in the family who still had my number, and I always answered when she called. "Roberta," she said. "I do not know what is happening. Your mother is hysterical. Your father will not speak to anyone. And Christopher is in jail." I listened. I did not tell her it was me. Not yet. "The company is days away from bankruptcy," she continued. "The banks are demanding payment. The shareholders are calling for new leadership. And your parents are sitting in that big house, watching everything fall apart." "What do you want me to do, Grandma?" I asked. "I do not know," she said. "But I thought you should know. You are still a Harris, even if they do not treat you like one." The next day, I sent the letter. It was delivered by courier to my parents' house, a thick envelope embossed with the logo of my law firm. It was a notice of foreclosure. The debt I had acquired was being called in. Harris Manufacturing had 30 days to repay the full amount, plus interest and penalties. The total was well over $50 million. I included a handwritten note at the bottom. Dad, you should have read my supply chain analysis when you had the chance. My grandmother called me again 2 days later. Your father is furious, she said. He figured out it was you. He found articles about your company online. We all did. Roberta, you are a billionaire. You own NovaFin. Why did you not tell us? Because you never asked, I said. None of you ever asked what I was doing. You just assumed I was nothing. I let you keep assuming. Your mother flew to New York, my grandmother said. She went to your office building. They would not let her in. I know, I said. Security called me. Are you going to see her? No. My grandmother was quiet for a moment. You have every right to be angry, she said finally. They treated you terribly. I saw it. I should have said something. I am sorry I did not. You were the only one who ever showed me kindness, Grandma. That is why I still answer your calls. I love you, Roberta. I love you too. The trial of Christopher Harris lasted 3 weeks. I did not attend, but my grandmother kept me updated. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. The defense offered a weak argument that Christopher had been under stress. The jury deliberated for 6 hours and found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 8. I watched the news report on my phone in my office. My brother, the golden child, was being led out of a courtroom in handcuffs. My grandmother called me that night, her voice heavy with sadness. Your mother is destroyed, she said. Your father has not left his study in days. The company is gone. Their son is in prison. And their daughter will not speak to them. They made their choices, Grandma. I know, she said. But I am stuck in the middle. Your mother keeps asking me to call you. She wants me to convince you to see them. Are you going to? No, she said. I told her you need space. That you have earned the right to decide when and if you want to talk to them. Thank you, Grandma. But Roberta, she said, I want you to know that your father is a broken man. He spent his whole life building that company, and now it belongs to you. He does not know what to do with himself. I did not feel sorry for him. I did not feel anything at all. The special board meeting for Harris Manufacturing was held in a conference room in New York City. I had called it. I was ready to reveal myself. My grandmother had told me my father planned to attend. He no longer had any power, but he went anyway, a formality, a last grasp at dignity. I arrived at the meeting 30 minutes early. I wore a tailored black suit. I walked with the confidence of someone who had earned everything she had. I sat at the head of the table and waited. My father walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. He was 70 years old and looked every year of it. He stopped when he saw me. Hello, Dad, I said. He could not speak. He stared at me, the daughter he had dismissed, the daughter he had stolen from, the daughter he had not seen in 16 years. I must have looked like a stranger to him. I know you have questions, I said. I will answer some of them. But first, let me make something clear. I did not do this to hurt you. I did this because Harris Manufacturing was a failing company being run by incompetent leadership. I bought it because I saw value in the business and I knew I could turn it around. The fact that it belongs to me now is simply a consequence of your own failures. You destroyed us, he whispered. No, I said. You destroyed yourself. You destroyed this company. You destroyed our family. I simply happened to be the one holding the pieces when it all fell apart. I pulled a folder out of my briefcase and slid it across the table. Here is my offer. I am going to restructure the company. I am going to modernize the factory, invest in new equipment, and expand into new markets. Harris Manufacturing will survive, and it will thrive. But under new management. Your management contract is terminated. You will receive a severance package that is more than generous. You will also be allowed to keep your home. The mortgage has been paid off. He stared at the folder. Why? After everything, why would you help us? Because I am not you, I said. I am not the kind of person who lets people suffer, even people who have hurt me. You will have a comfortable retirement. You will not go bankrupt. You will not lose your home. But you will not have control over this company anymore. That is my price. And what about your mother? She can stay in the house. She can keep her lifestyle. But I do not want to see her. I do not want to hear from her. The same goes for you. This is not a reconciliation. This is a business transaction. I am buying you out of my life. My father sat in silence. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something change in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or regret. I am sorry, he said. The words came out cracked and broken. I am sorry for everything. For ignoring you. For stealing your money. For choosing Christopher over you. I was wrong. I was a terrible father. And I am sorry. I looked at him. I did not soften. I did not waver. I simply nodded. I appreciate that, I said. But it changes nothing. You had 16 years to say those words. You did not. You only said them now because you have no other choice. That is not remorse. That is desperation. I stood up. The papers are on the table. You have 48 hours to sign them. After that, the offer expires and I will pursue full foreclosure. The choice is yours. I walked out of the room without looking back. My grandmother called me a week later. He signed the papers, she said. Your father. He signed everything. He is retired now. He sits in the house all day. Your mother does not know what to do with herself. And Christopher? He is in a federal prison in West Virginia. He writes me letters. He says he is sorry for everything. He says he is getting help. Good, I said. I hope he means it. He asked about you. I was quiet for a moment. What did you tell him? I told him you are busy running an empire. That made me smile. I appointed a new management team for Harris Manufacturing. I authorized a $50 million investment to modernize the factory. I hired new engineers, new designers, new salespeople. I expanded the company's product line and opened new markets. Within 2 years, Harris Manufacturing was profitable again. The factory was running at full capacity. The employees, many of whom had worked there for decades, had their jobs secured. The company that had been on the verge of collapse was now thriving. I never visited Portsmouth. I never set foot in the factory. I ran it from New York, through my management team, treating it as one of many holdings in my growing portfolio. I did not want to see the town where I had been ignored. I did not want to see the house where I had been dismissed. I did not want to see the people who had failed me. But I made sure the company survived. I made sure the employees kept their jobs. I made sure the town that had been my home continued to have an economic anchor. I did it not out of love, but out of a sense of responsibility. I was not my parents. I would not abandon people who depended on me. 1 year after the takeover, I received a letter. It was forwarded from my grandmother's address, handwritten on simple stationery, with a return address from a federal correctional facility in West Virginia. I opened it reluctantly. Dear Roberta, the letter began. I am writing to you from prison. I have a lot of time to think here. I think about everything that happened. I think about how I got everything I ever wanted and threw it all away. I think about how you got nothing and built something incredible. I used to think I was better than you. That was what Mom and Dad taught me. They told me I was special, that I was the important one, that you were just there. I believed them. I believed that I deserved everything and you deserved nothing. I was wrong. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not expect you to care. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what they did to you. I see what I did to you. I see that I was the problem, not you. I am getting help. I am seeing a therapist. I am trying to understand why I did the things I did. I am trying to become a better person. I do not know if I will succeed. But I am trying. Christopher. I read the letter twice. I set it down on my desk and looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline. I thought about my brother, the golden child who had fallen so far. I thought about my parents, the king and queen of a kingdom that had crumbled. I thought about the girl I had been, the girl who left Portsmouth with nothing but a duffel bag and a bus ticket. I did not cry. I did not feel satisfaction. I did not feel pity. I felt something quieter. Something like acceptance. I took out a piece of paper and wrote a response. Christopher. Thank you for your letter. I am glad you are getting help. I hope you find the peace that has eluded you. I cannot promise forgiveness. I cannot promise a relationship. But I can promise that I will not stand in the way of your recovery. Do the work. Become better. That is all anyone can ask. Roberta. I sealed the envelope and gave it to my assistant to mail. I did not know if I would hear from him again. I did not know if I wanted to. But I had responded, and that was enough. I returned to my work. There was always more work to do. NovaFin was expanding into new markets. Harris Manufacturing needed ongoing attention. There were acquisitions to evaluate, partnerships to negotiate, employees to lead. I was 36 years old. I was one of the most successful women in American business. I had built everything I had from nothing. I had taken the neglect and the dismissal and the theft and turned it into fuel. And I had done it all on my own terms. I thought about my grandmother sometimes, the woman who left me the college fund that my parents stole. She passed away 2 years after the takeover. I went to her funeral. I sat in the back. I did not speak to anyone. But I was there. She was the only one who ever believed in me. She was the only one who called. She was the only one who made sure I knew that someone in that family loved me. I miss her every day. I thought about the girl I had been, the girl who sat on a Greyhound bus with $12 in her pocket, not knowing where she was going to sleep that night. I thought about how scared that girl had been, how desperate, how determined. I wished I could go back and tell that girl that everything was going to be okay. That she was going to make it. That she was going to build an empire. That the people who had dismissed her were going to be proven wrong in the most spectacular way possible. But I did not need to go back. I was here. I had made it. The empire was built. And the people who had dismissed me were living with the consequences of their choices. My parents were alone in their mansion, humbled and broken. My brother was in prison, paying for his crimes with years of his life. The company that had been the center of their world was now mine. I had won. But winning, I learned, was not the same as healing. The scars of my childhood were still there. The memory of being ignored, dismissed, and stolen from was still sharp. I had built walls around myself that no amount of success could tear down. I was working on that. I started seeing a therapist myself, learning to process the years of neglect. I was learning that success was not the same as happiness, that building an empire was not the same as building a life. It was a work in progress. But then, everything in my life was a work in progress. I had built a company from nothing. I could build a life from the ruins of my childhood. I just needed time. On a cool autumn evening, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. The city spread out before me, a sea of lights and possibilities. I had come so far from the girl on the Greyhound bus. I thought about Portsmouth. I thought about the Harris mansion on the hill. I thought about the factory that now bore my name on the ownership documents. I thought about the family that had failed me. And I realized that I did not hate them anymore. The anger that had driven me for so long had finally begun to fade. It was replaced not by love, but by indifference. And indifference, I had learned, was the truest form of moving on. I went back inside. I had a meeting in the morning, a potential acquisition that could double NovaFin's market share. There was always another mountain to climb. But for now, in this moment, I allowed myself to feel something I rarely allowed myself to feel. Peace. I am Roberta Harris, founder and CEO of NovaFin. I am the majority owner of Harris Manufacturing. I am a billionaire, a philanthropist, a self-made woman. I am everything my parents never believed I could be. And I am just getting started. Please like and subscribe to our channel.